Here, we're trying to graph this radical function. Because we've got this big square root, we know that our parent function is f of x equals the square root of x. Let's start by just graphing that parent function first. We know that we have the starting point 0, 0. My first point, I go right 1, up 1. Next point, I go right 4, up 2. Because I know if I plug in 4, the square root of 4 is 2. And then I start to connect those dots. So with that in mind, now let's look at our new function. If we have something added or subtracted underneath the radical, we have a horizontal shift. Because it's a plus, you think you're going to go to the right, but you're actually going to go to the left. Do the opposite of the sign. Now this part is outside of the radical, so we know it's going to be a vertical shift, and that follows the sign, so we go down 5 spaces. So that just tells us where to put our starting point. So if I want to graph f of x, this new f of x in green, I'm going to go to my original starting point. I go left 2 spaces, down 5 spaces, put my green dot there. Now I can use the same method. I go over 1, up 1. I go over 4, up 2 from my starting point. The reason I know I can do the same method is because there's no number in front of the radical, or we just have kind of an imaginary 1 there. And that's the graph of our new function. Now we've got a little more advanced function. We got the same parent function. I've already graphed it here for you. We can start, if we're adding or subtracting something underneath the radical, horizontal shift. Now if I'm adding or subtracting something outside the radical, we're going to follow the sign. It's a vertical shift. This sign right here, it's multiplied by our parentheses, and it's underneath the radical, so that we know it's going to be a horizontal movement. Horizontal flip. We also call it a horizontal reflection. That tells me that if I'm pointing this way originally, pointing to the right, now I'm going to be pointing to the left. Okay, so let's take our starting point. We're going to go right 2 spaces. We're going to go down 4 spaces. We're going to put our starting point here. We have no stretch. Originally, I would put my next point here. But since I have a horizontal reflection, I go left 1, up 1, and then left 4, up 2. And then I can start to connect those dots. Usually when you graph them, you want to plot at least 3 points and then connect them so it looks pretty good, right? And then this goes up into the left